Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Premiership Quarter. Today, I'm going to be doing my prediction for the Port Adelaide Football Club for the season 2024. I'm going to be doing my prediction for their starting 23, who I have finishing top three in a couple of their awards, including their best and fairest, their off-season ins and outs, and where I have them finishing in the 2024 season on the ladder. To start with, we're going to be talking about their predicted best 23 that I've done. So to start with, it's going to be their key defenders. That's normally how I start with, and I like to go through their midfield, then their forwards. Now, their key backs is a great improvement from what it was, but when you're going from poor to average, it might be good enough to keep them afloat, but I don't think it's good enough in terms of getting to that premiership level. Zirk Thatcher was very bad for Essendon. All the key forwards he plays on, the good ones, would kick bags on him. Tom Hawkins would take him to the cleaners consistently. And then Radaglia and Alialia, I don't like the fit of. So when it comes down to it, you've basically traded for Radaglia, who doesn't fit well because his game style is very similar to Alialia, and he hasn't been properly experienced as a key defender, and Zirk Thatcher, who just simply isn't a premiership level key defender. So I think it's better than what they had, but I don't think it's good enough to be premiership contender. In terms of their half-backers, I've got Dan Houston and Lockie Jones. I think Kane Farrell will play there at times. And I also think Miles Birdman probably starts there, but I really like Lockie Jones. I think he's pretty good for them. And he could also take over Burden's role by the end of the year if Birdman makes a good enough improvement. I think Houston was great for them last season. He obviously was, I think, in the All-Australian team. I know he definitely made the 44-man squad. And he might take a little bit of a step back, but it might allow someone like Bergman to step up. And then they've got Ryan Burton as that fourth tall. He is not bad as a lockdown, and he's not bad everywhere else, so he's just a slightly above average player. But I think he does his role consistently for them, which is good. To talk about their wingers, it's Kane Farrell and Travis Boak. I think Boak will move again more away from the midfield and will be a half forward winger for this season. I see him as starting as a winger, but as the season goes on, he'll move more into the forward line. And then Kane Farrell, I think, has got a great kick for them. He knows how to hit the 45s really well, and he's quite important for their ball movement. And then their forward line, I think, is going to be quite contentious. They had a lot of injuries there last season, and they had to blood a lot of youth. Someone like Ollie Lord got a lot of game time, with him and Marshall being the two keys alongside Finlayson. But I think at their best, I've still got Dixon and Finlayson as their two genuine big body key forwards. Todd Marshall's that third tall. He was excellent for them last season, and he can only really improve. He might need to fix a bit of his goal kicking, but I think he can get pretty close to that 50 goal mark for them. Now they've got Horn Francis, Powpepper, and Rioli as their smalls. Powpepper locked the position last year. He's just an aggro, not Dustin Martin type of player, but when Dusty's forward, he's very similar. And then they've got Willie Rioli's their pure small. He's a great goal sneak. He's not too bad in the air and he's very creative. And he fits in pretty well in the team. And then they've got Horn Francis, who somehow got, it was 16 votes in the Brownlow last season, might have been 13 votes. It bemused. I'm just so confused at that Geelong game, especially how he got those 3 votes. Yeah, he turned the game around in the fourth quarter, but that doesn't excuse what he did in the first 3 quarters when he was quite poor. So I think he's still highly talented. He'll definitely improve as the season goes on, but I'm still not sure if he'll be ready to go into that midfield alongside Butters and Rosé. Speaking of, I've got Soldo as their ruckman over Jordan Sweet. I think he'll take that sole position. He'll finally be able to have that ability as he was playing behind Nankervis for most of his time at Richmond. And I think he'll have a pretty good season for them. I see him on that tier alongside like someone like Ned Reeves and like a Tristan Cherry. I see him as a slightly above average ruckman who's pretty like uncoordinated in a sense for a football player, where he's just bumbling and jumbling around, but he'll make an impact for them absolutely. Then I think they've got three really good midfielders around him. They've got Butters and Rosie. Obviously, we know how good those two are. Butters has a great season last year as that number one midfielder. Was pretty close to the Brownlow in the end. I think he finished fifth, technically tied with Goulden. Won me a bit of money. And then you've got Rosie alongside him. They'll be a pair for the next 10 years, basically. And then Wines, I've got as that third midfielder. I think there's been reports that he'll go back into the midfield, and I think he will. And I think he doesn't get back to that 2021 form, but he just needs to get back to what we know Ollie Wines can do. He doesn't need to be that form because he's got Butters and Rosie to do that. He just needs to be better than what he was last year. Now, on their bench, I've got Bergman. I talked about him a little bit as one of those half backs. Realistically, he probably would be there by the end of the season, and I see him as a good improver. And then they've got Darcy Burn-Jones and Willem Drew as their two midfielders. I see Burn-Jones as like a do it wherever you need. If someone like Lockie Jones gets injured, he can fill in that position. If someone like Travis Boak gets injured, he can play on the wing. Or if someone like Jason Horne-Francis needs to move into the midfield with Ollie Wines injured, then he can fill in as a small forward like what he did last year. And then Willem Drew, he's obviously their lockdown mid. He played a lot more than Ollie Wines did in the midfield last season, but he's pretty good for them. I think he's slightly underrated in terms of what the media gives him credit for. And I've got him slightly ahead of a couple others who might make the team. And then on the bench as their fourth forward, key forward really, it's Georgiades coming back from the ACL injury. It's tough with their forward line, as I talked about, but I think with the potential he has, they need to play him because he should be a part of their future. He's obviously signed a deal with them. I think it's till the end of 2027. Correct me if I'm wrong. But he just needs to be healthy for once, and he'll probably be in the team for most of the year. Now, who I've got finishing top three in their best and fairest, I think the top two are pretty obvious. It's going to be Butters and it's going to be Rosie. Aliria is probably a close fourth behind Wines, but I just see Wines going back into the midfield and being more impactful, and I've got him finishing third. Obviously, with Butters and Rosie, we've seen the best out of them in the past two seasons, but they can still improve, and I see them doing that. Where they've got most goals, I've got Todd Marshall finishing first. I just think with the injuries Finlayson and Dixon might pick up, the role Finlayson plays as maybe more of a ruckman if Soldo's not as good in some games. And then Ollie Lord coming in at times only as a replacement, and Georgiades coming back from an ACL. I think he quite clearly finishes first. Finlayson I've got second because I think he had a great season last year and he just needs to back it up. He'll probably play more games than Dixon. He'll play more games than Lord. And then third, I've got Rioli. I just think he'll be their best goal-kicking small forward. I think he'll kick more goals than Pau Pepper, but I think Pau Pepper will be more important in games as that game breaker rather than goal goal-kicking forward. In terms of their most improved, I've got Ollie Wines being first, simply because of how poor he was in comparison to what he has shown last season. He'll just get back to where he could. He not necessarily to where he was, but slightly below that. Second, I've got Bergman because I think by the end of the season he'll take that spot either over Jones or Burton. And then third, I've got Soldo because I think he'll get more recognition for what he can do as that first ruckman. In terms of their off season, I talked about Zerk Thatcher and Radicalier and how I'm not a huge fan of it, but they got Jordan Sweet as a backup ruckman to Soldo, who's not too bad as a backup, but he obviously would have moved thinking he could have gotten more game time. And unless Soldo gets injured, I don't really see him being better than him. Although I've heard a couple rumors that Soldo might be starting as a forward, which I'm not a huge fan of. I don't think it really will work. Then they got rid of Fantasia. They got rid of Lysette, who retired, and they got rid of Riley Bonner. But that's really it. They didn't really lose anyone else more significant, except for Dersma, but he didn't really play. He would have been quite important for them in the future, but he just couldn't get his body right. And when he wasn't hitting his potential for them. So it's understandable that they got traded. But yeah, I think Port Adelaide really might struggle at times this year. I've got them finishing ninth, which is probably a bit of a bold prediction because they only really did improve from last season. But I just think there's going to be a lot of other teams who will improve as well. And I just don't trust Zerk Thatcher or Radaglia as key defenders. I think their forward line might struggle with consistency, with Dixon and Finlayson being moved around a fair bit, Ollie Lord coming in at times, and the structure might change quite a lot. So I've got them slightly falling from a top 3 spot. I think they did finish third in the end last year to ninth. But that's my thoughts on Port Adelaide. If you have any different, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Like the video if you enjoyed it. If you want to see more of this type of content, please subscribe. There's a lot of content coming its way. And thanks for watching.